Disney wants your kids to party on with drag queens, but if your high school kids dress in drag, the internet straight loses its marbles. What is going on? Okay, this turn of events, like Kim K holding hands with Pete Big D Davidson on a roller coaster, this turn of events straight up has me dazed and confused. But before we get into all this madness, how was your Halloween weekend? On cancel, me baby. You guys are back. We are all back in action. And my Halloween weekend was pretty chill. I actually pulled a straight up suburban mom, passed out candy to the kids. And I have to tell you, what was so sweet about it was how, because we're in this world, and this is what we're going to talk about today, how we are filling kids' heads with all of this confusing stuff, okay? About conforming this and fluid that and neutral toy section, Toys R Us could never, rolling in the grave that. And to see these little kids so pure and innocent, like the little boys and their whole costume and mask and Spider-Man, and the little girls twirling around like the tooth fairy, mermaid, witch princesses they are. I just was melting my little heart. I'm there's still some pureness out there in the world, because we are straight destroying them with all of these antics. Okay. And if you happen to be a woke person who stumbled upon the Cancel Me Baby podcast and you were like, oh, my ears, they're burning. Okay. You're like, this is not the New York Times subscription daily roundup I paid for, honey. You are more than welcome to change the channel. I don't care. Just because I think it's adorable that little kids can still be drawn to a boy costume and a girl costume. I am not transphobic. So calm down, quit sweating, wipe the brow, turn the channel. It's fine. Okay. So we learned that Disney, the Walt Disney Co., gotta love these people. The Walt Disney Co. and Hulu, because they're all owned by the same lords, the tech lords, the media lords that haunt our dreams at night. They extended an invite to their employees to have their kids go to, here's what it's called, a drag queen story hour and face painting party for Halloween. Okay. And here's a little bit what was in the description. It says it captures their imagination, allowing them to play with gender fluidity, unabashedly cheer on their queer role models, yada, yada. I'll pop up some pictures here. Now, to your surprise, because this episode, I feel, is going to have three groups of people being like, what? Pulling a straight up Beetlejuice. Their head will be spinning 5 ways from Sunday about what I'm going to say in this episode, okay? We have the right who's going to lose their mind. We have the left, and we have my loyal followers who are going to be like, what? What? Taylor, what? But guys, as you were here to expand our minds, if you're into shrooms, that kind of thing works as well. Have at it. But if you don't, you have the Cancel Me Baby podcast. Okay. So hear me out. Now, with the Disney drag queen extravaganza, here's what I will say. Of course, to no surprise, both sides have totally different reactions. Okay. The right, conservatives, are melting down. They are acting like Ursula and Cruella de Vil. If they allowed lesbians to be a thing, okay, somehow procreated and made this demonic event that is the drag queen kid party. The left, of course, they're like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what dreams are made of. Okay. Here's what I have to say about this. I don't give a flying saucer F, okay? Flying saucers, because I wish one would just take me away out of this place. I don't care. Like E.T. phone home here to me, Taylor's house, take me away. I don't care I'm not a parent, but if it's me, I'm thinking, you know what? These people are dressed up. They're having a good time. These are kids. They don't know the difference. I'm sorry. When I was their age, my grandpa dressed in a full head to toe costume of Tigger. And I thought he straight up popped out of Pooh Bear's storybook. They don't know the difference. They're kids. who cares? If people are dressed in costume, like let them play. What is the difference? They go to the parade, which by the way, overrated, at Disney World or Disneyland and have the time of their lives. What does it matter if you're going to have some man dressed up, okay? Like Princess Jasmine, sure, he may have a beard, but they're not going to know. Again, they're kids. Let them play. Let them have their imagination. Like I would even join, invite RuPaul. Who cares? Okay. The issue I do have with this is like, of course they have to plug in every buzzy word ever imaginable. They straight out pulled up the woke thesaurus and was like, okay, gender fluidity. Yes. Okay. Queer role models. Yes. And it's like, I could have had the event and done without all of that. Now that's not a knock on, drag queens or cross dressers or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. If you've listened to my show, I really could care less about how you live your life. I like, by all means, power to you. I don't care. But I don't think that we need to have, again, this is to me now where it takes like the fun to the next level of virtue signaling. I didn't need like all these buzzwords in here to prove a point, Disney. Like I didn't need them. You know what? Let the kids play with the drag queens. Who cares? Again, who cares? They don't know the difference. But here's what's crazy to me. So you have this, and yes, like I said, the right is going mad. They're like, this is not what Disney is about. They are poisoning the young minds of America and da, 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 da. And I have to say to that, like, I've gone in on Disney on the show. We have bigger fish to fry with those people than a harmless Halloween drag queen party with face painting. By the way, kids I'm 30 and I'm stoked to get my face painted. Do you think these kids give a shit who is painting their face? Not to discredit the drag queens, but do you think I'm sorry, I don't care. If the devil himself came out, I'd be like, this is awesome. I'm getting my face painted. Let's go. And kids think the same. They don't care. But anyhow, so we have this. But now on the flip side, okay, of this crazy, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but it's what went down, and you can't make this up, at Hazard High School. Like they should have known, a premonition that no witch could predict. Hazard High School in Kentucky. Now, before I get into the weeds of this story, two things. One, I want to make it super clear because I've said this before. I am always an advocate of kids maintaining their innocence. Like we have our whole lives to be torn the F up about relationships and sex and identity and what a man should be and what a woman and blah, 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 blah. Okay. This has no business being in the brains of anybody like K through 12 years old. Okay. Leave them alone. Let them play with Barbies. Even if the Barbies are in drag, I don't give a shit. Okay. I've maintained this stance through and through. I've been consistent. I mean, I did a whole ep, if you remember last year, with guests who were moms about how Teen Vogue, like they're over here, talk about woke, having the audacity to publish articles about anal sex in Teen Vogue are like, what? Unnecessary. Thank you. Stick to putting condoms on a banana. If you want to call me old school, I don't care. Okay. Some jokey, archaic, fuzzy, awkward sex ed tape from the 1950s will do just fine. Okay. And don't even get me started. We're going to get into this a little bit later, but the stuff that is being fed into kids' heads now relentlessly about all this gender and identity and sex and yada, yada, yada. Okay. Again, no business, no business whatsoever. And also, I just snapped the pen so you would really hear me loud and clear. I am by no means like, if you guys are about to be like, oh my God, what? Like, I am not some pedophile. Okay. Because I'm going to be talking about high school kids in drag doing funny stuff. So before you get like, no, I know. Cause I was like looking at the story. I was like, my listeners are going to be like, Taylor, have you full on lost it? Like, are you in a coma, Halloween candy coma? Like knock it off with this shit. What is happening? Okay. So let me stop you right there. Okay. So with that said, innocence, please. intact for the kids. Okay. So back to Hazard High. Now, Hazard High in Kentucky. Hazard High, everybody. They had a spirit week. I mean, don't you guys all remember your spirit week in high school when you did all kinds of like pranks and kooky stuff and homecoming? I don't know if it's homecoming, whatever. You get what I mean? So at Hazard High, they made the mistake of putting photos on the internet, which like we learned this last week with the lady chanting away, not to the colors of the wind, but to this like faux trigonometry Native American chant she made up, and it will be haunting her days until the end of time. But this school put up on the internet photos of kids in high school, boys, like manly men, boys, okay, in what they call a traditional, they do this every year, they say, man pageant. Now, this year, these guys are just like blowing out of every gender conforming, right? I'm using these buzzy words, box you can think of. Like these are like grown high school boys that like literally will tackle your ass on the football team. Like they're ready to do a keg stand. And they are over here, like in this pageant, straight up twerking in like the like tiny shorts and fake bras and drag, right? But not that much, you know, kind of scandalously dressed, but it looks to me very funny. And the part that's sending the internet over the edge of the Grand Canyon is photos of these students giving the male faculty, like, again, these like grown men, like faux jokey kind of like lap dances in their drag and like spanking them around kind of thing. And you can see in the photos, the grown men, the grown woman, everyone who's there is in stitches. They are falling off of their seats, laughing their asses off. And I say this because to me, it seems all in good fun. Like they're kind of doing this like spoof prank, you know, embarrassing their teachers. And it's not at all to me in a creepy way, like, oh, it's Jeffrey Epstein's sex chamber on some deserted island. No, like it doesn't seem like that to me at all, where it's like, ooh, I'm going to do some sexy lap dance on you, teacher. And the teacher's like enjoying it. Like they're laughing, like hysterical, like I said, falling off their seats. And I read every piece about this under the sun, that the teachers like push them off, you know, but it's not on video. There's photos. So that wasn't captured. Well, this whole thing is making the internet wish that every person who ever set eyes on, in, near, or around this school was in the depths of hell, or known to my Lord of the Rings fans as Mordor. They wish that they inhabited there because they are losing their minds. And what's interesting to me, we're going to talk about like, is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? Okay. Because I know most people's initial reactions are like, what? What's interesting to me is how both sides are losing their minds, but for completely different reasons. But let me tell you a little bit about how this played out. So of course, it got brought to the internet, and obviously the school didn't think that there was an issue with this because they put it on the high school team's athletic Facebook page. And then obviously it got taken down. But just here are some facets of this. Okay. So the principal at the school is also the mayor, and his nickname is Happy. And apparently they love this. And he's in some of the photos. They love this man. After all of this went awry with the media just saying how bad this is and how it just blew up, they love this man so much. Like, this is how harmless this man is. They had a rally. I'll put up some pictures up here. Okay. They had a rally for this man. They had a big sign that said, "We love you, Happy." Some people even changed their profile picture to a picture of him in a Superman cape, AKA saying, this was all in good fun. No one was harmed. This is a tradition we've been doing forever. It's teenage boys messing around, being teenage boys. You know what I mean? Having a good laugh. And this is where it's also like, these kids are doing it. People are saying, how could the teachers let this fly? This is absolutely insane. It's not like the teachers were like, oh, let's do this to have little boys in here. No, it's like the kids, again, pulling a prank on the teachers. And isn't there something, I mean, I'm just putting myself in their shoes. I feel like I would think that this is hilarious. Like how awkward. Imagine like your high school boyfriend who was most certainly on the football team is wearing like a pink bralette and like dancing around the lap of your like big kind of overweight, awkward, science teacher. And he is like, what is that? Would you not? I mean, I would be laughing at that. I'm just saying, I actually thought so. At my high school, our mascot was the Rebel, and we had a male type pageant like this called Mr. Rebel. And I could have sworn, I searched into the corners of my mind, into the depths of my soul. And I thought to myself, I really could have sworn that we did something like this with the guys kind of jokey, giving some sort of dance. But in my mind, as I recalled it, it wasn't to male teachers. I thought it was to female teachers, one of them being my high school cheerleading coach at the time. But I asked my friends who make fun of me because they say I live under the biggest rock. I have like high school amnesia because they're like, you literally live under a boulder and your best friend is Patrick Star. But I asked them, I said, guys, didn't we do something similar? And they were like, Taylor, are you out of your mind? Our school would never allow this because this would straight up be assault. But nonetheless, I could have sworn we did, but maybe it wasn't, okay, maybe it wasn't to this extent, but we still did this, like, again, Mr. Rebel, this sort of pageanty thing for guys and like twisted the gender role thing on its head. And before I tell you more of what happened, I mean, let's dive into that for a second. Isn't there something funny about that? Like seeing like guys, manly men with like hair on their chests and the whole thing do stuff like that. I remember on cruises, yes. Those of you know the family cruise, if you know, you know, okay? There was the Sexiest Man Alive contest out by the pool, and I would participate as a full-on like Chippendales advocate every year to watch it because it was so entertaining. And again, they would do stuff like this. Like they'd have to like walk down like a pageant girl and like model their legs and do funny stuff. I think that there is something funny about, you know, straight men playing this up and kind of, you know, joking around. I mean, we've even seen it in movies. Do you guys remember Sorority Boys? It's a movie that would never fly now, but I think it was from like the early 2000s, but it's these guys who are in a, you know, in a fraternity and they dress in drag and try and get in with the sorority. And it's this whole thing. But it's that idea of like the physicality of it, even in The Hot Chick with Rob Schneider, when Rachel McAdams and him have a body swap and he's all dressed in drag, right? There's just something like the physicality that's funny about it. And so for these high school kids to be like horsing around, joking around, it's like, that's what kids do. And like, it's not like, this is high school we're talking about. Again, like I maintain wanting kids to have innocence forever. Like Billy Madison, I'm like, stay as long as you can. That is me with these kids. Okay. I'm like, be abstinent and prude as long as you can. No, but they're high schoolers, guys. They know about all of this stuff and about sex, you know, and I bring up the example all the time, but like American Pie, none of them dressed in drag and gave fake lap dances to their teachers. But I'm saying it's that idea of like doing funny shit around sex and you know, exploring and playing around when you're that age. I remember when I was that age, even younger, maybe probably like, I don't know, 15, maybe 16. I remember we would play like capture the flag in our neighborhood, and to like experiment with the guys, we'd be like, okay, like feel for feel. Okay, show for show. Like that's what we did. You're kids. You don't know about sex any other way. So my point is, you know, it seems like this is all in good fun. Kids, you know, and high school boys and high school kids, they joke and horse around. This is what they were doing before iPhones were around, honey, to capture it. And it's like, it's always what they did. Is it what they're going to be doing? I don't know. Because like the superintendent of the school wanted to remind us, what happens on the internet lives forever. Yikes. That shit is terrifying. Okay. So here's what happened. Okay. So we know that the school and the kids were wholeheartedly supporting the principal. They did these rallies, all of this stuff. Okay. Basically like wearing his face on their t-shirts. Okay. And they said that this is a town, by the way, that got annihilated by COVID. I think job wise, I think they had a lot of cases, et cetera. So they felt like, someone said they felt like their pride was under attack. Keep in mind too, this is I read it's like a 90% conservative town. So someone even said, and they acknowledged, now this just plays up the stereotype that we're a bunch of ignorant hillbilly idiots and that we let this stuff go. But really, it's all in good fun and nobody is hurt. Okay. Oh, and this is another reason why they love this man so much. The the principal / mayor, which that is hilarious. He's also known for providing rides to students to help, money, collecting furniture for needy families, just being really hands-on in the community. Obviously they adore him, right? Is the point. And at this rally, there were kids of like all different, genders, races. So like really coming together to support this man, because of course what happened was he just was straight skewered by like every authoritative figure this side of the Mississippi. So first of all, the governor weighed in, the governor of Kentucky, saying it was totally unacceptable, inappropriate, shouldn't happen. And I think that they'll learn. The superintendent said, in today's society, students must understand anything posted online is permanent. It is there on public display for everyone to see and share around the globe. Yikes. We would hate to see a single youthful indiscretion haunt one of our children for their entire life. I know they were also doing an investigation. There have been people punished. They're not saying who. I'm assuming, this man. And they think that potentially they have violated the code of ethics. Now, this is where the right and the left are both losing their minds, but for different reasons. Like the right is just literally like cannonballing into conclusions, because one parent even said, now we're being made out to be child molesters, a cult, promoting human trafficking. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's what people on the right are saying, like the drag queen thing. It's like, you're destroying our kids, you're, pedophiles and filling their heads with all this and da, 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 da. Okay. It's way too far. It's demonic, all of this stuff. Now on the left, lo and behold, they have their panties that they may or may not have worn to the male pageant in a wad, because they're saying that it is insulting to trans people and it's anti-trans, I've seen. And this is where it's confusing, because it's like, you would think that you would be having a male pageant of your own on your street, on your corner, on your rooftops, because you guys all day long are talking about how there shouldn't be, gender conforming this or that, or in a box of what a male or a woman should be. Like, you're seeing these high school boys, like I said, blow all that out the window and just have fun and joke and like twerk in a pair of underwear or short shorts in their high school gymnasium. Clearly not caring about the boxes that men and women and gender, all that are supposed to be in. So you would think that you guys are literally rejoicing, having a parade. But this is where, again, it's like, nothing is enough for you guys. And to the right, again, jumping harder than a shark at your wound during Shark Week. Like, calm down. But both of these, like, this is my issue. And it goes for what I said last week about the white woman in the California school with the Native American thing. Like, I feel like we automatically, we have such a cynical way of looking at the world. Like, everything is bad one way or the other. Okay. Both sides, it feels like, are triggered by everything. The right, everything is spoiling the minds of young kids. And some of this I can get behind, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. And the left, nothing is enough for you people. I've said this 100 times to the woke, like, nothing is quite enough, and we're exhausted. Oh my God. Like, we have done mental gymnastics to the point where we should be 7-time gold medal winners by now, trying to play your games with you people. Okay. So that is what's crazy. It's like both sides. And it also makes me think about two things. One, like what the superintendent said, how when something lives on the internet, it's there forever. I mean, that scares me. When I was young, maybe 8th grade, I don't know, high school, not even high school yet, but Facebook was just becoming a thing. And I remember I got in major trouble by my parents because I put up again, this kind of thing, like horsing around with my girlfriends, like posing kind of sexy with like props and stuff like that. And we put them, maybe it was MySpace even, I don't know. Honestly, we're going that much into the archives. And I got in so much trouble by my parents because they were like, what are you thinking putting this stuff up? what by the time you're, this age, are you going to be showing your whole, you can only imagine how that conversation went. Okay. But now it's to the nth degree. It's like, kids can't play or horse around. It's like that idea what the superintendent said. It's like, everything is going to haunt you forever and ever. And that honestly really scares me because again, it's like kids are going to play. It's what they're going to do. Just like kids at the Disney playing with the drag queen's face painting, okay, on their fake boobs or not. And these kids horsing around during Spirit Week. And I also feel like there's a part of this that's really telling about how there's such a discrepancy between real life and the media. Like as Dave Chappelle put it with Twitter, like Twitter is not real life. This is real life. It also kind of goes for this too, because when you think about it, conservatives are absolutely losing their minds saying how abhorrent, unacceptable, violating, inappropriate this is. But when you think about it, again, this is a conservative town. I think, like I said, 90% of the people who live here are conservative. So it makes you think, it's like, how reflective is the internet of real life? But the reason why this is crazy to me and how, again, both sides are so uptight about it is I feel like it's losing sight of the bigger picture. Now think about, okay, all of the stuff, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, okay, I foreshadowed this shit harder than a Capote novel, but I'm on that high school theme today. I remember reading In Cold Blood and I just will never be the same. Like I'm still shaking with fear, tremoring. Okay. But this is what we're losing sight of the bigger picture, because think about the stuff that is getting filled in kids' heads now all day long about gender, about this, about that. Okay. Here are some things I'm just going to throw out at you. Okay. In Cold Blood is like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star next to this. Okay. First of all, I was listening to Abigail Schreier. She's the author who had her book basically burned, virtually burned. It's called Irreversible Damage. And it's about kids and transitioning and kids who change their mind, et cetera, et cetera. And like, again, called transphobic. So her book was like sent off into a black hole, nowhere to be seen. But I listened to her on a podcast recently, and she talked about how schools now are encouraging kids, listen to this, to go by any pronoun, name, gender, and they're hiding it from their parents. So the parents will go into the schools and roam the hallways, and no one on the faculty will let them in on this. Yet when they are nowhere to be seen, they will be calling the kid and treating them however they want. How confusing is that to a kid? I'm sorry. I remember first getting boobs when I was like 12, and I would go at sleepovers and we would dissect. We'd be like, okay, are they a millimeter bigger today? How did you get them? Because puberty is confusing enough as it is. She also told a story about how there was this one girl, maybe middle school, maybe high school age, who never quite fit in, was kind of awkward to herself, and then decided she was going to transition into a boy. And that's when her peers accepted her and she was like the cool girl. This is where our generation is at right now. Okay. Also, she talked about how whenever there is data about kids who transition and change their mind, these people get harassed for being transphobic, whether it be by the trans community or not. And again, none of this is to knock trans people. I fully support you. Like I've said before, I will straight up motorboat you. I don't care. I will fully support every civil right that you need. But even when it comes to meddling in kids' minds and their bodies like this, that's where I draw a line. Even Blaire White, she's one of my fave trans personalities. I interviewed her. She's a YouTuber. I interviewed her years ago. And she even said, this is someone who has transitioned and is in the public eye, that it is child abuse to let these kids be filling their bodies with these, puberty blockers and this and that. Okay. It's nuts. Now, additionally, here are some other things. Okay. In California, leave it to Gavin Newsom. Have you heard of this? Okay. Because in California, guys, you got to be 21 to drink. You got to be 18 to consent to sex, enlist in the army, but to change your organs and to start doing, trans treatment with privately without consent of parents. You only have to be 12 and it's paid by tax dollars. Okay. Let that sink in. And also, I also came across this today, a New York Times op-ed, of course. And it said abortion and trans rights are two sides of the same coin. And this is what scares me. It said both restrict actual women and children's rights and bodily autonomy. Children's rights and I'm sorry. This is like, again, if I'm a parent, I'm going, I pushed this creature. I carried them for 9 months, pushed them out of my vagina. Okay. Autonomy. My parents lost their mind. I had to hide my belly button piercing for years. Again, none of this is undermining or downplaying the torture. If a child really is dealing with a gender dysmorphia, they don't feel like the right gender, and that's confusing. But to act like children should have these bodily, I mean, are you kidding me? I didn't even know what my boobs were until they were grown in fully like 5 years ago. Are you joking? Also, how bananas is this? Okay, so you guys are going to, in these schools say that if you're as young as 12 years old, you can change your body parts and change your organs and change your anatomy. That's how much bodily autonomy you have. But you actually can't come to school and learn about multiplication today if you haven't gotten a vaccine that was developed basically a year ago. Think what? Again, what are we doing? Everybody is so confused. Okay, insanity. So my point being, guys, is that we have all of this stuff going on in kids' heads every day, yet we are going to go apeshit over some high school boys jokingly dancing around to embarrass their male teachers in drag. Wow. That they're like, to me, again, it's like kids playing with grownups in drag. I'm sorry, to me, like both of these, there is a difference. To me, there is a difference as dressing or playing in drag or playing with people in drag, okay, than completely getting fed all of these things about your identity, putting medication in your body, changing your organs and your body parts. Like there is a difference. And when you look at the bigger picture here, we are all over the map. Like, what are we doing? We are filling this kid's head. Number one, we're over here being like, gender isn't real, go play, da da da. But then these kids like horse around and do this stuff out of high school, and then they're reprimanded. You know, the governor has to weigh in. Every news outlet picks it up. It's like, you are confusing them. You're confusing me. And I'm 30. Like, please send help. But on the whole, the bigger, more alarming picture to me is the fact that, guys, like we're talking grownups here, okay? Like millennials, nobody, like we literally don't know what we're doing, okay? We're not having sex. We're not getting married. We're not having kids. And this is what I mean. It's like, where does all this go? And I can only imagine we didn't even grow up with all of this confusion. Can you imagine these kids now? Here are some stats, okay? Here are some stats that are going to blow your mind more than Mrs. Doubtfire's kids when they found out it was her dad, their dad. Talk about drag, okay? Marriage rate is at an all-time low. Millennials are most likely to reside with their parents than any generation before that, okay? Millennials aren't having sex. The number of young men 18 to 30 who admit they've had no sex in a year has tripled in the last decade, okay? Last year, the number of deaths exceeded that of births. Deaths, more people died than more people had babies in half of the country, okay? Here's one that just tops it all off. Like, who let the dogs out? In San Francisco, there are more dogs than children, okay? So I bring it back to the kids in the beginning and their innocent Halloween costumes. Maybe we need to just let kids be kids and figure it out. Let them horse around playing in drag or with drag queens or not, because clearly they seem to know more than us putting stuff in their heads. picking their little Superman, Spider-Man costumes and princess costumes. Maybe these kids deserve a little more credit than they're given. I think does all of this interconnectedness, we're not being physical with one another, we're awkward, we're not mating, we're not dating. Does part of it have to do with the fact that we live on these screens? Yes, I think absolutely. But don't you also think that these messages and this confusion around identity and gender is part of it too? No one knows how to act. They're like, do I be a woman? Do I act like a man? Do I act like this? Nobody knows. And in turn, no one's meeting in real life. No one's having sex. No one's having babies. Everyone's just adopting a bunch of dogs. Okay. So if it were me, I'm just saying, if I were a parent and it were me, I don't think that we need to act like sex does not exist. Okay. We are all virgins until death do us part. Mother Mary, can I get an amen? And be prude. But we don't need to be filling kids' heads at 12 years old about putting hormones and all these medicines and changing their body, like into their bodies. Are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. Again, to bring it back to the beginning and to these kids, maybe we just let them figure some things out on their own. Because I'm telling you, if I have a kid, I would rather them be sure of who they are and confident to go out in the real world and meet somebody and do all the dating and do what they want to do and move through the world with confidence and assurance. Okay. Versus all this other convoluted mess, having people so confused, even if it means, they're horsing around as a teenager in a lace thong. By all means, go for it.